Hello, and thank you for dropping by. For new users or new viewers, this channel is around digital transformation, digital technologies, digital business models, and how incumbent companies respond to the threat of digitization or threat posed by digital natives. In continuation of the series, I'm going to talk about Metaverse. This video is around the Metaverse and its associated terms. Now, you must have been inundated with certain terms in the recent past, which is Metaverse, NFT, Web 3.0, blockchain, decentralized finance, and so on and so forth. This video will give you the basics of the Metaverse, how do the physical and digital worlds interact with each other, and therefore what should companies be doing as three fundamental questions. With that, let me kind of start this discussion by defining the metaverse. The word metaverse. The word metaverse is basically a combination of two terms: meta, which means transcendence or going beyond the ordinary or going beyond the physical realm, and verse is a short form of the universe. So metaverse as a concept means an immersive experience beyond the physical realm in a computer generated or a technology generated environment where you kind of interact, transact like you do in the physical world. This concept was put in play by Neil Stephenson in his 1992 science fiction called The Snow Crash, wherein he talked about human beings moving away from the physical world and kind of living and transacting in the metaverse. What the man said in 1992 has come to pass right now after 30 years. And therefore, let's kind of open my deck and go through this discussion on the metaverse and the internet of the future. Just a second, let me just put up the content, and here goes. Metaverse and the internet of the future. In this, we're going to talk about three things. So what is the metaverse? How is it connected to Web 3.0? Big definitional things. And the second important thing is, how does the metaverse work? The integration between digital and the physical worlds from a technology landscape perspective. So this is the center of the presentation, to say that, okay, why is the metaverse going to be a real thing, and what challenges does it pose to business models in the future? And I'll kind of finish it by talking about which industries are actually, or what kind of brands are actually building their strategies around the metaverse, and therefore what should companies do in terms of the metaverse strategy. With that, let's kind of move on. Web 3.0 is the third iteration of the web. Now, I grew up in Web 1.0, which was a static internet where you had static pages and content written by people, published, and this was decentralized. Anybody could post a content and you could read it, but you could not engage with that content, which is around the late 90s to the 2000s, and was probably the medium of engagement was through a desktop or maybe a laptop at best, but it was not user generated content. As we move, as the smartphone revolution became big, user generated content and social content became very important, and you could interact on the net, which was a two-way communication model. Consequently, the net was owned by huge corporations who had a very significant user base, because as you interact in Web 2.0, you leave a digital footprint which these great corporations could monetize and create business models around it, which led to huge corporations in the form of Google, Facebooks, Amazons, and even platform companies like Netflix and so on and so forth are all examples of Web 2.0, who actually, when you're not paying for the product, you are the product, in terms of your data becomes central to creating a business model. Web 3.0 basically breaks away, it's a departure from Web 2.0, wherein the computer and the World Wide Web will not be owned or held hostage to the whims and fancies of a few corporations, but will be owned by users, wherein these user generated content and everybody will have an immutable version of the content, and therefore the way they interact, the way they transact is going to fundamental change. So Web 3.0 is all about the decentralized web and is around who will own and control tomorrow's internet. while metaverse, on the other hand, is how users will experience the net of the future and what kind of business models will come to vogue to create experiences which are unique and how the physical and digital worlds will interact. Moving on, the core idea of the decentralized web, other than the fact that it is going to be decentralized, is that monetization of data will move away from big corporations where they owned the data and they monetized it for businesses of their own, and individuals will control their own data and you will have a consenting process, and individuals will move from virtual worlds and consent whether this data can be used or not. So that's a very fundamental shift. And in this point, I'd like to call out something which is significant from the digital transformation world. A lot of great digital models are built on the incumbency of data, and incumbency of data in proprietary walled garden technologies which enable them to monetize the data, create patterns around the data, create unique value propositions, often personalization of products and services. Now we're moving into hyper personalization. Now this model is going to fundamentally change when it's going to be decentralized. The power is going to shift from few corporations to the vast multitude of users, and which will always be manifested by rise of decentralized web browsers which block ads and let users choose which website can access the data. Brave, Osiris, CryptoTab are the new generation browsers. While how the digital transformation models will change, digital models will change in the metaverse is not a subject of today's discussion, but I thought it's important to understand the way we understand digital transformation is also going to fundamentally change come around 2030 when the immersive technologies will gain scale. Okay, moving on. As I said, from the definition perspective, metaverse is an immersive world. It is a virtual world which is a high fidelity mirror of the real world. Now it has certain phases of evolution, and there are generally three phases. One is where the virtual world or the digital world and the physical world are mirrors of each other, but you go in, go out using a certain set of technologies, which is augmented reality or virtual reality or mixed reality glasses, and you get into that world, have an avatar which is a physical replica of you, transact in the world and come back. Primarily, the challenge of the metaverse of this mirror world is to have it as close as a physical environment. Like in the physical environment, we have a sense of weight, we have a sense of space. And with the emergence of haptics technologies and glasses and gloves, you actually have these processes getting placed in the virtual world, making it very closer to a digital representation of physical reality, but however, these are two still different worlds and it is an alternative reality. That is phase one, called the mirror world. From the mirror world, we move into something called the intersected world, where the content created in the digital world can be used in the physical world with the same fidelity, with certain governance rules, and therefore the worlds start overlapping, and it's called the intersected world. From the intersected world, as technologies and business models mature, the physical world and the digital world will completely subsume and will be parts of each other. So you can actually blank off experiences of the physical world and get into the digital world for an alternative set of experiences. Now this sounds spooky, so let me try to explain this with an example. So imagine a worker in the metaverse world of the future, in the intersected world, enters a manufacturing plant, puts on a smart jumpsuit with AR glasses and starts monitoring the site. As he or she is monitoring the site, a notification from the digital twin of a machine comes that a maintenance is required and an OEM needs to be contacted very quickly. The worker clicks on a button, sends a drone to pick up an OEM or a part from the OEM in 8 or 10 minutes flat, goes out in the physical world, the drone brings the machine, and the worker makes his way to the machine, either in the physical world or the digital twin of the machine, and the ambient cameras around the machine autonomously shut down parts of the machine so that the act is performed either in the digital twin or in the physical world, and it is set right and preventive maintenance takes part. Now this is a combination of both the intersected world and the surreal world put together. The notification from the machine could actually come from the digital twin of the machine and not the machine, the physical machine, which therefore this data is high fidelity and accurate data, which will enable the worker to act and set out a drone who goes out in the physical world, picks up the material, brings it back for it to happen. So here in this example, you will see intersection, which is the digital twin of the machine which sends out a notification, to again going back to the physical world where the drone goes to the OEM warehouse and picks up the item which needs to be put into place for the maintenance process to happen. The maintenance process can happen in the physical world or in the digital twin, which therefore then gets replicated in the physical world for the entire operation to be complete. The worker leaves the manufacturing plants, gets off his or her jumpsuit, takes off the AR glasses, and is back to the physical environment. That is where, from the mirror world, which are two different worlds as we see it now, it is going to be an immersive world of physical and virtual reality in totality as a package going further. Now, what we need to also understand, and I need to call it out right now, the technologies are, the people who are building the metaverse are different. The technologies are getting in place. There are some standards in place right now, but the way it will evolve is anybody's guess. So this is at best a guess, but much of it from a principle standpoint is likely to going to hold true. The important question for businesses is to say that how do we participate today, which is the mirror world, where you have gaming, meeting, retails, virtual fashion as the key use cases, but how are we going to kind of work in the intersected world? And if you look at this company, NVIDIA, the chip manufacturer, they have a tool called omnipresence, where you actually create physical reality or digital twins of physical worlds, and BMW uses it to simulate 31 factories to do floor layouts in a digital environment and in a digital twin environment, and then replicate it back to the physical world. Therefore, we see the intersected world being built, and how the surreal world is going to come to pass is anybody's guess. This leads us to the important question: how or does all of these things happen? As in, how do the physical and the digital worlds interact? In the next slide, it's a kind of a busy slide. That's what I'm going to try and share with you. So stay put, and if you are not from a technology background, try and kind of follow this process. I hope it makes sense to you. And here goes. Now let's start at the bottom of the slide, which is the physical world. The classical physical world is an unintelligent world where every transaction or interaction happens on physical reality. Now, as the physical world was in presence for thousands of years, there is an infrastructure or a digital infrastructure which has been built over time. This digital infrastructure starts with sensors, where you convert unintelligent objects by putting in a sensor and an actuator, where you emit data about the physical condition, the performance conditions, and the other factors that enable the performance of a particular machine. This data then, through a communication network, which is 5G low latency networks, or an unarmed vehicle or a drone or a satellite, gets pushed using a computational layer, where this gets kind of, the data gets massaged and models get created in AI and ML, where you have either edge computing, where data gets cleaned at the source and then gets passed on into an algorithm in the future and stored for perpetuity. Now these four elements or layers actually create the digital world as we understand it today. And smart object and intelligent objects are created, intelligent platforms are created, data gets centralized, and somebody owns the data, creates a business model around it, giving you personalization, and right now hyper personalization of goods and services. That's what we're used to. Now, with this physical infrastructure in place comes the next level, which is the metaverse engine. The metaverse engine starts with the interactivity layer through brain-computer interfaces, putting in AR glasses, wherein you start interacting with the virtual world using a particular hologram, and that hologram or an avatar of you is created. This avatar is a representation of who you are in the digital realm. Now this leads to scene creation, scene transferring, and how you interact with it using AI and recommendation engines actually say that how you're playing. Now typically think about a gaming environment. You're playing a game in Fortnite and your avatar is actually the way you are playing the physical world gets translated exactly the same way you are playing in the digital world. Similarly, 3D modeling, data fusion, and we talked about digital twins are creating alternative models of you which are absolute replica of this. So a host amount of goods and services are getting created. Now as you create a digital avatar, obviously you need to wear certain digital clothes to make it real, and therefore digital fashion comes in play, but you've got to create an economic purpose around it, and a virtual economy gets built through smart contracts, which is a line of code, decentralized finance, which is a fairly big subject and not part of the disruption, or a non-fungible token, wherein the uniqueness of an asset is actually established through a blockchain protocol which identifies the asset to be unique, and therefore you have digital art which is worth millions right now, and a lot of people have sold digital art which is an NFT which gives you bragging rights. But also you need to understand that NFT, while it's a big thing right now and people are paying premium for NFT is as good as what the next person pays for it, right? And the value has not been established that well. That said, there is a whole lot of virtual goods and services. This goods and services then therefore get traded or interacted on in virtual environments. Now there are three virtual environments in the slide: Roblox, Fortnite, Sandbox. And in Sandbox, you can create digital stores, and where you can create metaverse stores where you sell your virtual fashion, and people actually wear the virtual fashions. In Roblox and in Fortnite and Roblox primarily, you can actually buy digital land, and you can create your own houses, invite people into the party, and all of this becomes a real digital experience. And therefore the top of it is the digital experiences, wherein you have decentralized finance, where you interact using stable coins or bitcoins or whatever, and you have digital work, you have digital fashion, you buy something, and all of this is an absolute reality of your physical world. Now, important question is, a lot of business models, and I talked about it a couple of minutes ago when I was talking about Web 2.0, is built on data incumbency, which is the way digital business models are built. Now, when this data incumbency and the business models need to be translated into digital experiences, this translation requires a deliberate strategy, which we will through a certain set of use cases that I'm going to kind of outline in the next slide. And so the leaders of or amongst the businesses that are getting metaverse savvy, obviously gaming is one, but we're going to talk about virtual fashion. And these are the Uber brands which are already present in the virtual fashion world. And these are big brands and all of you can recognize it. Now let's look at how it works. Like Louis Vuitton, actually for its metaverse presence, has created Louis the Game. Louis the Game, which is basically a digital game where you actually use Louis Vuitton artifacts to play the game and you enter the metaverse. Similarly, Gucci Metaverse store in Sandbox is a big thing where you actually have a Gucci store and you buy NFT of Gucci products, and on the right you see a Gucci Metaverse bag which has a unique identity of its own and costs probably more than the physical bag. Similarly, Nike has bought over RTKFT, which is a digital twinning company, and therefore you see the Nike sneakers, and you can actually wear the sneakers and do your workouts or run in the digital world. Similarly, Dolce Gabbana, UND Marketplace, and I'm going to, for the interest of time, I'm going to skip it. Here you look at Ralph Lauren with Zepeto, which is a South Korean social network, and it actually creates clothes for your avatars to hang around with friends wearing Ralph Lauren shirts, t-shirts. And similarly, Gucci has built an interactive model and brand clothes for Roblox, Pokemon Go, and Animal Crossing. Similarly, Valencia with Fortnite has a partnership, and so has Roblox with Tommy Hilfiger, where you actually shop for virtual clothing and play the game, giving yourself a unique identity, right? And finally, Burberry is another example of the same process. Now, coming back, this is what basically the metaverse is a digital realm, a reality which is more and more replicating the physical reality. The question is, therefore, what kind of businesses should engage in the metaverse in the future? So, businesses around fashion, cosmetics, anything which helps you look good in the metaverse is going to get early traction. That's right. Now, the second important question is, this is when the physical and the virtual worlds are distinct. Now, when the physical and virtual worlds meet and create the intersected worlds and the surreal world, which we talked about in the evolution of metaverse, what is going to be relevant? Now, you could actually design the factory on a digital twin and then do a factory. Now, that is also an application of the metaverse. To that an extent, you have BMW, where its entire factory planning, its maintenance planning today is right down being done in the metaverse. More and more such applications will be going forward happening in the metaverse. So while fashion, gaming, cosmetics, jewelry, all of this have obvious metaverse examples because they are going to sit on your avatar, industrials will also have an important implication in the metaverse. The third is media and entertainment. Now, entertainment, live events in Roblox, right? As against having live events which are physical events, like unfortunate KK's event in Nazrul Munch in Calcutta, that could have been done in the metaverse, which would reduce the risk, and you would have KK's digital avatar coming to you, and so on and so forth. The unfortunate event would not come to pass. Similarly, media and entertainment is going to be hugely disrupted by metaverse, and also media, user generated content. So the news channels, the CNNs of the world. Probably in India, NDTV, Times Online, all of this which are Web 2.0 presence in the future, post 2030, will have to have some format to engage in the metaverse as well. With that, so this would probably give you an overview of the metaverse and the themes which are important in metaverse. Stay tuned, as I'm going to create more and more content on industry-specific metaverse topics as we go along. Share, comment, critique as you deem fit, but keep coming back to the channel, and thank you for viewing. Till next time, I'll take your leave right now. Bye bye, and happy Sunday.